We've been talking about this movie for a while now, about the outlook, about the box office projections. And then after the first weekend, it seemed like every mainstream media outlet was saying exactly the same thing. Despite this movie opening well below something like Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, every mainstream outlet and every shill site, every stan site, all these places, they were saying, wow, what an incredible opening for Captain America: Brave New World. This is just so stunning and brave. Look at it. It almost made as much in its opening weekend as Captain America: Winter Soldier from 11 years ago, when ticket prices were half of what they were for this specific movie. But nobody wanted to pay attention to the reality that this movie was tracking worse than Quantumania, the reality that with the box office reception, with the word of mouth, with all these things, it was likely going to track similar to Quantumania. We talked about it here on this channel, Jay, you and me, just a few days ago, about what it would probably look like. And what do you know? Here we are. Box office, Captain America: Brave New World suffers 68% drop in its second weekend at the box office. That's good enough for third worst of all time. Celebrate the Black Captain America. He's almost breaking records. Not the records you want to break, though. Captain America bombs at the box office, grossing $28.3 million domestically in its second weekend, a 68% drop. The third biggest drop in MCU history, behind the Marvels at 78% and Ant-Man Quantumania at 70%. Who could have predicted this, Jay? Who could possibly have said that this was likely the trajectory that it was going to have?
I don't know, because I saw tweets out there saying, like last week, saying, my gosh, it looks like people actually are liking this film. Turns out people do want to see a Black Captain America.
Yeah, imagine being this retard. Turns out people do want to see a Black Captain America. The movie's going to fucking bomb. The movie's going to be an embarrassing disaster.
First week was marketing. Second week was word of mouth. That's what happened to Captain America.
And the first weekend wasn't good.
No, it wasn't.
We have to continue to point this out, right? Like, you have to take these things into consideration. You have to take in inflation, ticket prices, all this stuff. When you're comparing an $88, $89 million opening weekend, a traditional 3-day weekend for Brave New World, versus the Winter Soldier $95 million opening 11 years ago, it should be pointed out that ticket prices for this movie were over $15 per ticket on average, whereas ticket prices for Winter Soldier were closer to $8 on average. So when you actually look at the number of people that went, nearly 12 million people in America went to see Winter Soldier on opening weekend, compared to about 5.5 to 6 million for Captain America: Brave New World. That's a pretty fucking important difference when you're trying to make these comparisons.
Listen, they knew this movie was going to bomb. That's why they didn't release it during the blockbuster season, which is typically summer or Christmas viewing. They just dumped it in February. So trying to hope anything would happen in this film. It doesn't really have much competition. So they probably looked at that as well. They're like, what weekends or what month can we put it in that won't have a lot of competition? So maybe we possibly could break even. What I really love about this whole thing is the break even number that all those important sites were sharing like last week, saying it only had a $180 million budget. Don't be saying it didn't, because we know the truth, and it only needs to break I don't know what the
425 is the number they're throwing out, which is bullshit anyway.
But it might not even hit that number.
Yeah, even if the budget was around 180 million, 425 is not the break-even point. It's just laughable at this point, because this movie had, at a minimum, $100 million in marketing. This movie needs, at a minimum, best case possible scenario, even given the lying budget they're telling us, $550 million, maybe more, to break even.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It is now going to struggle probably to get to that 425. The reason being, after 2 weekends, Captain America: Brave New World sits at $289 million. Let's round up for him and say $290 million. I will continue to bring it back to Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, because it's important to do so, because these movies were both released on the same exact holiday weekend 2 years apart, which is why it's probably pretty telling what way one's tracking and how one's going to go. That ended up for 63 million worldwide. Captain America Brave New World after 2 weekends at 290. Where was Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania after the same 2 weekends? Well, don't worry. I've got the data. This is from almost exactly 2 years ago. Cocaine Bear sniffs up 23 million. Ant-Man 3 suffers massive 69% drop.
Cocaine.
Globally, the movie has generated 364 million. Right? So we're looking at a $75 million difference right now between where Ant-Man was and where Captain America Brave New World is. This is the reason that all these fucking shill cocksucking sites didn't want to compare it to Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania because they knew it wouldn't be a good look. But that is the most accurate comparison. And with all that in mind, this movie is now going to struggle to even get to $400 million. That's how bad this is. It's pathetic.
They must have thought, like, Disney must have thought, like, well, I know we'll at least hit 425. So let's just throw a number out there for them all to grab. And, we won't look so, it won't look so bad if it doesn't hit it,
I think
we'll blame something else. I don't know. We'll blame it on something, but whatever it is. And now it's like, it's funny that they might not even hit that. So
I think internally, well, obviously they know they've spent $350 million on this thing, but I think internally they probably thought they'd be in that $430 million range. And I think they put that out there so that they could at some point say, hey guys, we broke even, don't worry. And it's going to be really fucking pathetic when it doesn't even hit that. God, fuck the media. It's doing really bad in China as well. Look at this.
Imagine my shock.
In China's box office, also hit hard by negative word of mouth, Captain America Brave New World crashed and burned, grossing just 1.4 million on its second 3-day weekend. A shocking 87% drop from opening weekend.
Negative word of mouth. That's the killer right there. I mean, people are telling everyone that this movie stinks.
It has a worse audience score than the Marvels.
Why? Isn't the Rotten Tomato score high, though, for its, I guess, word of mouth?
Look,
it's like 80%, right? Is it like around 80?
I've tried to explain this multiple times when it comes to the new way that Rotten Tomatoes is with its verified audience reviews.
I apologize. I forgot.
Right? So it is sitting around 80%. But you have to consider now the context in which these things are. It's only people, it's only people that have gone to see it, only people that have bought tickets, connected to Fandango, all that shit. With the current state of the MCU, that means that it has to be people who have seen all the crap come out, burned time and time again. They see all the marketing for the movie, and they're still willing to go and give it a chance and watch it, which is an increasingly smaller number. Day by day, release by release. But the chances that those people, after seeing all this shit, are going to go in and probably have a positive view of the movie, much more likely than the average audience member like us who's sitting at home and saying, this looks terrible. I'm not going to fucking waste my money on this shit. Right? So it's important to know that when it comes to current Rotten Tomatoes, that everybody has actually seen that movie, and the people that actually are going out there and actually connecting their Fandango, they're much more likely to like it than the people who have said this looks like shit. I'm staying home and waiting for somebody I trust to review it. But that 80% score, you know what that's very similar to? Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania.
Yeah.
The Marvels. All the movies that now blow it out of the water, right, in terms of box office, Deadpool and Wolverine had like a 97%. Spider-Man No Way Home had like a 98% audience score. So those things really have to be looked at as almost grading on a curve now. Now, when it comes to streaming shows, that's not necessarily the case because you don't have to verify anything to review a streaming show. And I'm not saying that it's right. In theory, you should only want people who have seen the movie probably to review it. All right. But once you do that, you don't have the general audience sentiment for a lot of people anymore. And I think that's why you're seeing these movies that are flopping and failing still having an 80% audience score, because quite frankly, Marvel has lost everyone. So the only people that are going anymore, the only people that are giving these things a chance are people that in all likelihood are going to like it anyway. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Now, and of course,
Go to critic list.
No, they're just lying. No, they're just lying. They're just fake reviews. I'm giving you a pretty reasonable explanation as to why those numbers are the way that they are.
And they keep changing it just to. They just hate those negative numbers on that site, don't they?
They do. They do.
Go to critic list. Put your review up.
Yeah, but you can still go to places like Critic List. You can still go to places like Metacritic, others things like that that don't require the verification, and you can see how it's doing on those. And it probably looks extremely different.